Hey, this is Gayle with BERNINA of Naperville, and let's talk a little bit today about a new program that we're starting, and it's called Karma Court. Now, it's designed by our friends at Sassafras Lane, and it's totally colorful and beautiful, and it is more than just a block of the month. It's a row of the month, and it's done with foundation paper piecing. Now, one of the things I want to talk about with foundation paper piecing is we're going to do this a somewhat traditional way, but we're not going to tear paper away. Now, if you've never heard of paper piecing before and this is the first time you're hearing about something like that, stay tuned. But for those of you that have heard of paper piecing, traditionally, you get a foundation, you stitch on a line, you get all of that constructed, you leave the paper in, you piece all of the stuff together, and then when you're done, before you quilt it, you peel all the paper away, and it's a mess of paper, little bits everywhere in your house forever and ever. Well, I'm going to show you how to do a no-tear method where you still use the same method, but instead of stitching on the line, you're going to fold the line over, and we're going to use my favorite Bernina foot, number 10, number 10C, or number 10D. Now, if that's not enough to wet your whistle, you know what? I am an impatient person, and I am getting less and less eager to kind of just sit down at the sewing machine and sew like this. I like to exercise my finger and push a button. I love to push buttons. I push buttons all the time at the store. You can ask Amy or Linda and they'll tell you the same thing. But I have taken these designs, these paper piece foundation pieces, and I made them an embroidery design that you can stitch and flip in the hoop. And you're essentially making two pieces at one time, and it's easy and it's fun, and it doesn't even require that many more supplies than our regular paper piecing. So are you done listening to me talk? Okay, let's go over to the computer and see what we're doing.
So here we are with Karma Court, our row of the month, all done in paper piecing. Now, the Bernina of Naperville spin is that we do monthly video instruction that I create some, video content to show you how to do each row. And I provide my 2 cents and my tips and tricks along the way. You're going to choose your favorite method. And like I mentioned, I'm taking you through two methods. The first method is a no-tear foundation paper piecing method, and the other is in the hoop stitch and flip style embroidery, if you have that kind of sewing machine. So I have a couple videos here on standard paper piecing techniques, but if you've never done paper piecing before, stay tuned. We're going to have a little discussion about it. So there is a schedule. Now we've had our first in-person meeting on October 4th, but no worries. It's never too late to sign up for this program. We sell the kit at BERNINAofNaperville.com. It's called Karma Court, and it gives you all of the fabrics that you're going to need to complete this quilt top. So before we get started with all of that, let's just concentrate a little bit on what is paper piecing. So, paper piecing is a method of piecing patchwork in which the piecer works with areas of paper to determine the shape and size of a template. Now, let's talk about a, a form that some people refer to as paper piecing, but it's not quite what we're doing in this session. It's English paper piecing, or EPP. This is mostly a handwork technique where heavier paper is used as a template and cotton fabric is trimmed about a 1/4 inch larger and formed around the shape and basted into place. And an example of that is a grandmother's flower garden that you see there on the right. And there's a little link to take you to a video on EPP. But the pieces, after they are all wrapped around all of these hundreds or whatever of pieces of paper, they are then whip stitched together by hand. And it's a great little take it on the go kind of project, but it's not what we're doing in this quilt. The next one is paper piecing or foundation paper piecing. This is produced by machine and it's a color by number type process. And you can do everything from something super easy to something quite complex. So typically, thin paper is used and seam lines are printed on the paper. The piecer then stitches through the fabric and the paper to construct the block. And this process is referred to as like stitch and flip. And it can be messy due to removing paper because there's lots of trimming. And here I give you a video of doing paper piecing with paper and a sewing machine. Now, the no tear foundation paper piecing is just like the machine paper piecing technique I showed you, but in this case, there's no stitching through the lines. We are folding the paper over and stitching next to the fold to create our block. And there is a great little blog post here that you can link to if you want to see how Lee Heinrich explains it for you. And this post is at wealsew.com, but you can just click on the link. It'll take you right to her instructions. But many other people have done this technique before as well. I just don't like all of the little bits of paper everywhere, honestly. So now let's take it to the umph degree, shall we? There's also embroidered foundation piecing that is really like paper piecing. And embroidery companies have designed embroidered in the hoop projects to make foundation style piecing even easier with the touch of a button on your embroidery machine. And so I have linked to 4 different design collections from OESD that refer to this method. We actually have our embroidery sampler part 2 that did this method, and it was pretty cool. This is the Piece to Perfection collection right here, and then we combine some other embroidery designs to create a block of the month. Those videos are live on our website. If you want to check those out, you can just click on this link here and it'll take you to them. If you want to do something small, there are coasters like you see here, mug rugs, and some other little coasters with a holiday theme. So what do you need to get started with this? Well, of course, there's our Karma Court Row of the Month kit, and this is giving you about 23 yards of fabric to make a completed quilt top that's 70 inches by 84 inches, and it does include the booklet pattern. I'm using Metler 50 weight cotton thread in the top and bottom through my whole project, but I might vary the colors based on what the colors are each month. You know what? Why am I listing it out? Let's go over to the drawing board and I'll just show you these things so that you can see them live and in person. So here are our basic supplies. And of course, the joy in doing this row by row of the month or row of the month or whatever is looking at what beautiful colors you're going to work with each month, right? So before we start, stitching anything at all, I just want to talk about some basic supplies. Of course, you have the pattern that comes in your kit. And also, you've seen me kind of looking at the presentation deck that I put together for you, but let's just look at what some of these things are. So basically with paper piecing, there's lots of stitching, lots of folding, and things like that. There's also lots of trimming. So this is a ruler. It's called an add a quarter ruler, and you can buy them. Let's see. You can buy them in 12-inch length or a 6-inch length. For this particular project, you're definitely going to need the 12-inch. You're going to need some sort of like little brochure or something. This is the BERNINA of Naperville brochure. In the kit, we probably give you a more updated one of this. And this is just something to kind of put the add a quarter ruler on to keep things nice and secure. It's not that necessary for this technique that we're doing. There's also a glue stick. Now my favorite is the 505 glue sticks, but the Elmer's glue one works fine. So you don't have to necessarily use your precious 505 stick because it works so much better on fabric. We're using mostly paper, so we can just use these Elmer's glue sticks. And just one note is you definitely want to go for the ones that are water soluble and that go on purple and dry clear. Now, there's a lot of different pressing devices. You could use a mini iron like this one that you see here. You could use one of the little steamless steam rollers like this, or you could use a Hera marker. A Hera marker is a finger pressing tool. It's usually got like a little stiletto on the other side, and we sell these in a set of 3. And something like this will work quite nicely. So this is all for the traditional method of the no tear foundation paper piecing. Also, you're going to want a smaller rotary cutter to kind of maneuver, around it's a little bit easier because it's thinner to kind of pack up and stuff. And then finally, I like this rotating mat so that I can turn things around and I don't have to awkwardly, move my hand or whatever. So these are the basic supplies for our no tear method that we're going to learn. But hold your horses here. After I go through the instructions for our no tear method, I'm going to show you how I speed do this by foundation piecing this in the embroidery machine. But one topic at a time, shall we? Now, when you get your paper, and I just print just a couple copies of it, I don't go crazy because we are actually going to be reusing our paper to do our foundation piece. So getting them separated like this, and then you'll notice that this and this is mirrored. So this is foundation A and this is foundation B. And what are we making? Well, units that are going to look like this. And this is row 1, so we're using the yellow and the orange. And if you'll look in my instructions that I put together, I have done the swatch it pattern for you. So here's the real deal here. I just glued the swatches of all the different fabrics down so you can see 1 and 2 is what we're going to use this month. Next month we use color 3 and 4, and then it continues from there. But I'm going to make sure I tell you which fabrics we use each month so you're not confused, okay? So knowing that this is what we're going to be making, I have a couple of others that have been put together. So here's one. These are all leaning the same direction, right? And then this one is one that I've started that will be on this side. Each one is kind of done a little bit like paint by numbers. So you can see here on foundation A, we start with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. It's 11 pieces. Over here on this one, we build this way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And the thing that might be harder to get used to is when we're stitching, we want to be able to see the lines on whatever we're looking at in this direction. So we actually work upside down, building our pieces as we go along here like that. So with that in mind, one of the things that if you were to do traditional paper piecing, foundation paper piecing, you would be stitching through these lines and then you peel your paper at the end. That is so messy and I really don't like that. So I am going to do this no tear method. Now, there's several blog posts and articles and everything about this, and I've included those in your presentation deck. So let's get started. So once we take one of our pieces that have both versions, because we have two different foundations, foundation A and foundation B, right, that go together. So we're going to need to prep both of these. And the way we do it is we're going to take this brochure or whatever straight edge you want to use, and then we're going to fold our paper over like this. Then we're going to slip that away, and I'm going to use this Hera marker, and I am going to crease that with this flat side of this and then open it up like that. And basically all I'm doing is pre-folding everything. So I'm going to do all of these lines on this piece this way. Okay, so now we do the same thing to the other side. So what are we making each month with this row of the month? Well, basically we're making the triangles or the little diamond shapes each month. This month we're starting with this top row. See the little yellow bits like that? These are like setting triangles. We're doing the top row and we're doing the bottom row right there. So then each month we're going to need to make different amounts. So for instance, this month one, where we are doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 triangle shapes like this for the top and 5 for the bottom. So that's a total of 20, okay? Then in the next month, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. We have 16 diamonds that we're going to sew together, plus 17, 18, 19, 20, 20 that go in this configuration. Each month, we are making units that are like this, and we make like 10 one way, and then we make 10 that are mirrored, right? And then that's how we create our block. So we are going to just focus on the top triangle portions here, and then we're going to put that aside and wait until next month for the assignment for this row. Month 3, we have these guys here, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's 5 complete quadrants, but it's made up of 2 different blocks, one block and then a mirrored block, and we're still making 4 units in each block, so it's still 20 each time. I think that this will make sense as we just start building, but you know, it's a puzzle until we start putting it all together, right? Now that we have our pieces, both of our pieces pre-folded, we're going to start building these. So this is foundation A, and we're going to turn this upside down like so, and this is how our work is going to come out. So if we look at this here, this is the side that we're making now because it's, you know, we want to see our writing on the back side. So it goes like this. So once we have our piece that's pre-folded, we're going to look right under color number 1 and we're going to add the glue. Then we're going to take our piece, we're going to take a strip, and the orangish color is color number 1, or at least that's what I picked, right? And we're going to line this up so it covers that whole piece. So if you can envision, if we shined a light through this piece, we should be able to have all of the fabric covering it. Then we're going to look at the color sequencing. So color number 1 gets placed down first. Color number 1 gets placed down first. Then color number 2, color number 1, color number 2, and we go in order. So the bold number is the order that you're sewing the pieces together, and the color 1 is this, and color 2 is this. So with that said, we can take this piece now, it's pre-folded, so now we're just going to pre-fold like this, use our add a quarter ruler, line it up like so, and get a nice straight edge. Then we can undo this, turn it over, and align our yellow piece here. And then because we're always going to be stitching with the paper on top, this gets folded over like this, and we're going to stitch really close to that paper. Now we might need some special tools in order to do this. So let's look at all of the options that we have for stitching. You know, when we think of piecing, we think of piecing with a 1/4 inch foot. But because this line right there is our actual seam line, we don't really need to sit there and line this up to a 1/4 inch with this foot. Maybe you are somebody that likes a clear foot, so you want to line that up a little bit and see what we're doing. But I am recommending that we use either a number 10C, a 10, or a 10D, depending on your machine. Now, if you have a Bernina 475, 330, 325, you know those machines that do 5.5 millimeter stitching, you're going to need a regular number 10. If you have a machine that has 9 millimeter capability, then you can either use a 10C or a 10D. 10D has the dual feed on it, and it doesn't really matter. We don't really need dual feed, but we can use either 10C or 10D. If you have a 990, any of the 7 Pro machines, an 880 plus, those kinds of machines. So essentially, a number 10 foot has a little guide at center needle position, and then the rest of the foot where the needle will go is open. And so we can just butt that paper up to that guide and stitch, 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 and really get a nice straight stitch. So that's what I'm going to be putting on my 990 today to do this stitching.
You can also see that I have my straight stitch needle plate on, and I am using Metler silk finish thread in the top and bottom in this neutral gray color. So I have my fabric aligned together, and now I'm going to be stitching. I'm just going to use my presser foot to lower my foot down. And I haven't sewn anything today, so it's making its little good morning grunt to me. And once again, I just have a regular straight stitch, and I have not adjusted the length. That's at 2.5, and that's because I'm not going to be perforating any paper, so I can just go with my normal stitch length I would use for piecing. Now, once I'm done, I can cut, and I'm going to remove this work from under the machine, and now let's go back to the cutting board.
So this is exactly as it came off of the machine. I'm going to unfold my paper. I'm going to turn this around. I'm going to use a little bit of glue because we want to make sure this doesn't come off the paper as we're sewing. Just a little bit like that. And now I'm going to take the yellow fabric and move that over and use my Hera marker to finger press. Like so. Now we're going to turn this over again. And now this time we're sewing on piece number 3, which is color number 1 again. So now I'm going to take a color number 1, line it up like so, flip my work around, fold on the line between piece 1, piece 2, and piece 3. Use the add a quarter ruler and trim. And now we're going to stitch with that same method with my number 10 foot. You might notice that I still have my laser on just to make sure that my needle's going where I want it to go. And if you don't want to constantly be pushing up here to cut your thread and all of that, we can actually adjust our machine to program our foot control to cut with the heel tap feature. So now this is exactly the way that this has come off of the machine. So once again, I'm going to do the same thing here, putting a little bit of glue along this line, and it's okay to put some in the seam allowance as this gets skinnier. Then we're going to press this over using our Hera marker to get a nice crease, or your mini iron, or the steamless steamroller. And then once again, every time before I add a piece, I just want to make sure that it's going to cover its piece. So we've done 1, 2, 3. Now we're going to fold this over and we're going to put on our color number 2. And now we're going to line that up, making sure everything is going to get covered. Like if I were to open this up, yeah, that's going to be good. And now we're going to stitch. And then of course I used my heel tap feature to trim my thread that time. That's going to save me a little bit of time with this project. And now we're going to finger press, use a little bit of the glue just to make sure it doesn't come loose, because the only thing holding this to the paper is this glue. So now we've done step 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we're going to fold and do 5. This time we go back to our color number 1, making sure that it's going to cover its next piece. And now we'll stitch it down. Turning it over, folding. Remember now we've done 5. So now our last color is going to be color number 2. Well, it's not our last color. It's the last of the yellow versus the orange. And now we're going to align that. And however you want to think of adding your pieces, whether you want to think of adding it at the bottom like this, so you can just take it over to the machine easily like this, or if you want to think of turning it over or whatever. But this is how we're going to do it. And now we're going to fold it over, use our Hera marker, like so. Maybe secure it just a little bit with some glue. And now let's turn it over and see where we need to go next. So the next color after 6 is 7. So that means we're going to fold it right here, be right there, because that's 7. And now we're going to trim. And then we are adding our white pieces. So our pieces number 7 and 8 are from these tiny little pieces that we cut. And then 9 and 10 are from the larger pieces. So let's just take that under there and let's stitch this one together. Now we're going to go across the street to number 8 and trim. Once again with one of these small rectangles. And remember, we're going to double check that we're indeed going to cover everything in that tiny little 8 triangle. So I moved it over just a little bit. And now we are ready to move on to our bigger pieces. And it's going to be color number 9. And once again, we're going to line this one up closer to the edge here so we can make sure we cover that triangle. Okay, and then we'll go across the street over here to color 10. Fold that one over, and we are almost there, kids. Flip over again, and now we have a piece of our background. Now, our background for our row 1 is this black. And now we're going to fold this over and we're going to have to get a nice clean edge. This is why we need that 12-inch add a quarter ruler. And now we're going to align this up with the edge, just like so. And now we're going to sew it. Okay, so now we're going to trim our block. And we keep the paper on at this point, but all we're going to do is use our ruler as a straight edge, and the outer line here is the cutting line. And we're going to cut that, turn it around, cut. I'm just aligning the outer edge of my ruler with that outer line. Oops. Here we go. I'm lining this guy up. And then I just cut my little puppy ears off here like so. And now there's a block. And now look at this magic. I can just carefully peel that paper off. Now I can pair this together and I'm just going to stitch with a regular 1/4 inch seam. And for that reason, I can grab my 97D foot to do this. Now, when I do sew these pieces together, I'm being mindful to line my seams up together. I'm not a big pinner, as some of you may know. And now I'm going to line this up with the edge. Just here is my 1/4 inch seam. And I'm going to make sure that my seams line up here and here and here. And now there's a lot of bias on this, so I do recommend you use your dual feed feet when you're sewing your two pieces together like this. And ta-da, there it is. So basically, no matter what side you're working on, it goes together the same. You just follow the numbers. But wouldn't it be nice to see how easy this can be done on your embroidery machine? Let's have at it. Now, you might need some extra supplies if you want to go for that embroidery option. First, we're using poly mesh cutaway stabilizer, and that stays in the work. So you don't have to worry about ripping paper out, tearing things away, cutting stuff away. It just stays in there. You'll need an embroidery and a sewing machine with at least the capability to embroider an 8-inch by 8-inch field. That's the Bernina 7 through 9 series, really. You're going to need that 26 embroidery foot. And once again, you will need some sort of patchwork foot to sew your pieces together. We are using an 80 universal needle, and we are using our giant hoop in this case, but the maxi hoop and up will be appropriate. I've created a file for you based on the pattern, so all you have to do is click this and it will download the file for you and you can send it to your machine with your favorite method. And you're creating both halves of the block at one time. So you've got foundation A and foundation B that you're creating in the hoop. So essentially, each hooping makes one of those triangles, right? So this design is such that the first color is literally just a outline drawing of the foundation piece that we had on paper. And it's going to stitch one of the foundations in the top right corner. Then it's going to stitch the other one after that one's complete in the bottom left corner. And so as we go through all of these stitches, this is kind of giving us a visual of where we're going to flip and cover the next pieces. But the order is very similar to what we did in our manual foundation piecing method that you just saw me do.
Now, for the video, I've used a darker thread here so that you can see what's here. But in reality, I recommend that you use a 60 weight Cerulean thread for this step. It'll make it much lighter and less obtrusive when you're building your block, so you don't see the darker thread through any of the lighter fabrics. But you guys would yell at me if I didn't do this darker, because then you wouldn't see it at all. Okay, so now we're gonna stitch down our first placement stitch, and that's color number 2. And remember, we're gonna put just a little bit of glue to hold everything down. And in this one up here on this top corner, we're putting yellow first. So we're gonna just line up our yellow like so. And then we're gonna line up our orange on top of it and stitch. And now we're going to stitch, and it's going to do another placement line. And now it slid on me a little bit when it was doing the stitching, so that's where you could use some stabilizer tape just on that very first stitch. But now I'm not going to worry about it. I can just trim that away, and I can just trim it a little bit closer, because this really doesn't matter in the greater scheme of things. But if you don't want it to be as bulky, you can just give it a little haircut. And now we're going to flip this over, and we're going to stitch another placement line. And now we're going to trim this close to the line. Okay, then we're going to take another piece of the yellow, and we're going to line it up with our cut edge. And then we're going to press this over, and just finger pressing is fine. And now we're going to stitch the placement stitch. And then we're going to trim this close to the stitching line as well. And we're going to grab a piece of the orange fabric, line it up into position, making sure that when we fold it over, it's going to cover that shape we're trying to cover. Fold it over, stitch, fold there. Let's get rid of, there we go. We're trimming again. Let's choose a yellow. We're going to fold over and stitch. We'll add this piece on. Now we'll fold this one over. And now we're going to have a new recommendation line here. And now this is where we're going to put our white. that white print accent. And we're doing one of the skinny ones. And then we've got another one down here to stitch. And we're going to cut this close. And we're going to align this one just there. Okay, so now we have another placement line. And now this time we are using the larger white pieces that we've cut. Okay, and now another placement line here. And now line this guy up here. Now that's a little situation where I did not get my stuff in there very straight, so you can just trim it if you think you need to reduce some of the bulk. And now this is going to be a placement line for our black piece. And now we're going to trim. And now we're going to add this piece here. And we want to make sure it will cover everything when we flip it over. And now this last color that's going to stitch this unit together is actually the cut line. Now, before I get started on the bottom portion, I'm simply going to trim this bulk away so it doesn't get in my way as I build this next unit.
This next unit just gets stitched and flipped in the exact manner that we just did the first one. So you're just going to complete that, and then we can take this over to the drawing board and fine tune our trimming. Okay, so now it's all done, and those little stitching lines that you see there are going to be our cutting lines. So I'm going to remove this from the hoop. I'm going to bring back my rotary cutter. I'm going to gently cut my poly mesh to separate my blocks. And then I'm going to use any ruler, honestly. Doesn't have to be my add a quarter ruler, but it's nearby, so I can use it to trim. And I'm going to line it right up on that gray stitching line. And then I'll give this a pressing. And this was the last one I needed for my row. And so I'll stitch them together, and I will see you again next month.
Well, what do you think? Is this something that you want to try with us? Now, of course, we have Karma Court kits available at BERNINAofNaperville.com. You can just search Karma Court. And when you sign up for the program, you're going to get the interactive handout where I give you links to all kinds of other stuff that we've done that's similar. You're also going to get those special embroidery files from me so you can do your project in the hoop if you want to. And, you know, just a little cheerleader once a month to get you on track to do your row of the month. Okay, ready? Let's do it. All right. If you want to see more videos like this, don't forget to check out our Bernina of Naperville YouTube channel. It's easy. It's youtube.com/Bernina of Naperville, and there you can like, comment, and subscribe. Now, get to it. Let's sew something. Just make anything. Just